Everyone loves a winner. That is the easiest thing in the world. Standing beside someone when the rockets are launching, when the headlines are good, when the stock is climbing, when the name on the door means something the world respects. Everyone can do that. Everyone does. The room is full when things are working. But here's the question nobody asks, the question that actually matters. Who stays when the worst year arrives? Not the bad week, not the difficult quarter, the worst year. The year when everything that was built starts to shake, when the money is almost gone, when the press is writing the obituary, when the people who used to call every day suddenly have very busy schedules, when you lie awake at 3 in the morning with the specific, crushing weight of a person who might have been wrong about everything. Who stays then? Who looks at all of it? The failing, the uncertainty, the version of you that is not impressive, not visionary, not the man on the magazine cover. Who looks at all of that and stays? Not because they have to, not because leaving is complicated, not because walking away would cost them something they cannot afford to lose, but because they chose you, before the worst year, and they are choosing you still. Inside it, that person, that specific, rare, completely extraordinary person, is the one Elon Musk has been looking for. Not the one who loved him at his best, the one who would trust him through his worst, and be trusted by him in return. This is that story. Stay with me, because the worst year reveals everything, and what it reveals about who stands beside you is the most important information you will ever have. Let me tell you what a worst year actually is. Not the financial definition, not the professional one, the human one. A worst year is not simply a year when bad things happen. Bad things happen to everyone, every year, in varying degrees of severity. A worst year is something more specific. It is the year when multiple things fail simultaneously, when the professional and the personal are both in crisis at the same time, when the failure is not contained, when it bleeds into the relationships, into the identity, into the private interior sense of yourself that you have been protecting, with achievement, with forward momentum, with the relentless productive output of a person who has always been able to build their way out of difficulty. A worst year is the year when building your way out is not immediately possible, when the timeline is uncertain, when the outcome is genuinely in question, when you have done everything right by your best understanding of what right means, and it is still not working, and you do not know if it will, and the not knowing lives in you, every morning, every night, in the space between decisions that might matter and decisions that might be too late. That is the worst year. And the person who stands beside you in it, who does not require you to be winning to deserve their presence, is the person worth everything. Elon Musk's worst year was 2008. Not the worst professionally, the worst completely. SpaceX had just failed for the third consecutive time. 3 rockets, 3 explosions, each one representing hundreds of millions of dollars and years of work, and the belief of hundreds of people who had chosen to bet their careers on his vision. Tesla was burning cash at a rate that should have alarmed everyone. It was alarming everyone. The financial crisis had arrived. The money was nearly gone. His personal fortune, poured into both companies with the specific, complete, total body commitment of a person who does not do things halfway, was almost exhausted. The press was not kind. The press was confident, confident that this was over, that the man who had tried to build rockets privately and electric cars simultaneously, who had been called delusional by people whose credentials made the word land like a verdict, was finally, publicly, irrevocably finished. And his personal life, his marriage, the relationship that was supposed to be the one real thing in the middle of all the uncertainty, was fracturing, quietly. In the specific way of things that fracture when both people are surviving something enormous in opposite directions. He was sleeping at the factory, not metaphorically, on a couch, in a building, in the specific physical loneliness of a man whose professional life and personal life have both simultaneously caught fire. And in that year, in that specific, historic, completely real worst year, he discovered something about the people around him. He discovered who was there and who was not. And the people who were there, the ones who did not run when the name stopped being impressive, who did not become suddenly unavailable when the association cost them something, who did not revise their belief in him to match the current press narrative, those people. He never forgot them. And the person he needed most, the one person he could not find in the worst year, the woman who would have looked at all of it and stayed, not because she was blind to the risk, but because she had chosen him before the risk arrived. And her choosing did not have conditions. He did not have her then. And the absence of her, the specific, aching, completely real absence of one person who trusted him completely in the worst year, taught him what trust actually is. The world has made trust into a simple concept. It is not simple. The world says, trust is believing someone will not lie to you. That is the minimum, the baseline, the floor. Real trust is what happens above the floor. Real trust is this. It is believing in someone when the evidence is against them. Not naively, not without eyes open, but with the specific, considered, completely real conviction of a person who has paid attention long enough to know the difference between someone who is failing because they are wrong and someone who is failing because the right things are hard, and who understands, in the bone, not just the mind, that the second kind of failing is not evidence against the person. It is evidence of their seriousness. Real trust says, I have watched you, not just when things were working, when things were not. And what I have seen, in the specific, private, completely unperformative moments when you thought no one was paying attention, is a person I believe in. Not because you are winning, because I know who you are, and who you are is someone worth believing in, even now, especially now. That is real trust, and it is so rare that most people go their entire lives without receiving it, and spend their entire lives not knowing what they are missing, until the worst year arrives, and they find out exactly who trusted them, and who was just comfortable in their proximity to success. He never had it, not the real kind, not from the people who should have given it first. His father's trust, to the extent that it existed at all, was conditional, contingent on performance, on results, on the visible evidence of worth that the boy was still trying to produce. It was not the kind of trust that says, I believe in you. It was the kind that says, I will believe in your results. When you produce them, show me. And the boy showed. God, he showed. He showed at 9 when he finished the encyclopedia. He showed at 12 when he sold the video game. He showed at 19 when he got on the plane. He showed at 27 when the first company was acquired. He showed at 32 when the rocket launched. He showed and showed and showed, because the trust was never given, only earned, and earning it required constant demonstration. The moment the demonstration stopped, the moment the results paused, the moment the impressive evidence of worth was temporarily unavailable, the trust disappeared, not replaced by something else, simply gone. And the boy learned, in the way children always learn the deepest lessons, not through instruction, through the specific, repeated, completely real experience of love that had conditions, that trust was something you earned, not something you were given. And that lesson, that early, invisible, permanent lesson, became the architecture of his greatest professional strength and his greatest personal wound. Because a man who learned that trust is earned, who has spent his entire adult life providing the evidence of his worth, is a man who has never truly rested, who has never fully inhabited the feeling of being believed in, before the results, before the demonstration, simply because someone saw him and decided, I trust you, not for what you have done, for who you are. That trust, the unconditional kind, is what he has been looking for, in every relationship, through every marriage, and finding in pieces, in moments, but never completely, not yet. She trusts differently, not blindly. She is not naive. She has her own intelligence, her own discernment, her own hard-won understanding of the difference between a person worth trusting and a person who needs to be trusted into becoming better. She is not a person who trusts easily. She is a person who trusts deeply. And there is an enormous difference. Easy trust is no protection. It is not meaningful. It does not cost the person offering it. And therefore, it cannot nourish the person receiving it. Because the trust that truly nourishes, the trust that actually changes a person, that gives them the specific, sustaining, completely real feeling of being believed in, must be worth something. It must have been earned, not through performance, through knowing, through the slow, patient, completely attentive process of watching someone, in the ordinary moments and the difficult ones, in the winning and the losing, in the impressive and the ordinary, and deciding, not despite all of it, because of all of it. I trust this person. She has done that watching. She has paid that attention, not to his headlines, to him, the actual him, the one who shows up in the unremarkable moments, who tells the truth even when the truth costs him something, who refuses, in the specific, stubborn, completely authentic way of someone who cannot be anything other than what they are, to be less than fully himself. She has watched that, and she has arrived at her conclusion, slowly, without fanfare, in the quiet of a judgment that belongs entirely to her. I trust him. Not if the rockets keep launching, not if the headlines stay good, not if everything works out the way everyone is hoping. Now, in the uncertainty, in the worst year if it comes, in the specific, complete, unconditional way of a person who trusts not the results, but the person. And that trust, that specific, costly, completely real trust, is the most intimate thing she will ever offer him. There are 3 tests that the worst year runs, and the person who passes all 3, the woman who passes all 3, is the one worth everything. The first test. Does she stay present when being present costs her something? Not when it is easy. Not when the association with him is still an asset. When the press is writing the obituary. When the people who used to want to be connected to his name are suddenly unavailable. When being beside him requires actual courage, not social courage, not public courage, the private courage of a person who has decided, and does not let the world's opinion change the deciding. Does she stay? Not in the obvious way, in the ordinary way. Does she show up on the Tuesday when there is no good news? Does she sit beside him in the silence when the silence is heavy with uncertainty? Does she make coffee in the morning like it is an ordinary morning, not because she is blind to the difficulty, but because she has decided that ordinary mornings are what love looks like when the extraordinary is not available? That is the first test, and most people fail it. Not through malice, through the specific, human, completely understandable discomfort of being near difficulty. The woman who passes it does not find it comfortable. She finds it necessary, because she has decided, and the deciding does not have conditions. The second test. Does she tell him the truth when the truth is hard? Not the truth that agrees with his current direction, the truth that challenges it. Because the worst year is often a year of decisions, hard decisions, made under pressure, with incomplete information. And the wrong decision, the one that feels right because it is familiar, because it follows the established pattern, because the mind under pressure tends to reach for what it knows, can make the worst year longer, can make the recovery harder, can cost things that did not need to be lost. The woman who truly trusts him is the woman who will say, I think you are wrong about this, not to diminish him, because she respects him enough to be honest, because she loves him enough to risk the discomfort of disagreement, because the trust goes both ways. She trusts him, and she trusts that he can handle the truth. Most people in the worst year will not tell you the truth. They will either tell you what you want to hear, because they are afraid of your reaction, or because they need something from you, or because the performance of support feels safer than the risk of honest challenge, or they will disappear, because the truth is hard to say and harder to be present for. The woman who passes the second test does neither. She stays, and tells the truth, both, at the same time. The third test, does she trust him to come back? This is the hardest one, because trusting someone to come back from their worst year requires a specific kind of belief. Not in the evidence. The evidence in the worst year is often against you. It requires belief in the person, in the specific, private, completely real quality of the person you have come to know, that the worst year has not changed, that what you saw in them, in the ordinary moments, in the unremarkable Tuesday, in the unguarded silences, that thing is still there, still real, still the foundation. And the worst year is not the end of the story. It is a chapter, a difficult, costly, completely necessary chapter in the making of someone who will know, in the bone, what they are built of. She believes that, not as a comfortable story she tells herself, as a truth she has arrived at through paying attention. She trusts the comeback, before it happens, before the evidence supports it, because she trusts the person. And the person has not changed, only the circumstances. That is the third test. And passing all three, staying present, telling the truth, trusting the comeback, is what makes her the woman Elon Musk would trust during his worst year, and every year after. I want to take you somewhere specific. September 2008, the night of the fourth launch, the one that either proved everything or ended everything. He had 3 failed launches behind him. The money was almost gone. The team was exhausted. The press had moved past expecting him to fail. They had moved into something worse, indifference. The specific, dismissive indifference of a world that has decided a story is over. He stood in the facility, with the team, with everything they had built, and everything they had risked. And the launch happened. And this time, the rocket did not explode. It kept going, up, into the atmosphere, and then beyond it, into orbit. It reached orbit. And in the room, in the specific, physical, completely real room, full of people who had spent years and everything they had on this moment, people cried. People who had not planned to cry, who would not have told you they were going to cry, cried. Because the thing that seemed impossible, the thing the world had decided was finished, was not finished. It was in orbit. And Elon Musk. In that moment, in that extraordinary, historic, completely real moment, was not thinking about the press, not thinking about the headlines that would come, not thinking about the professional vindication. He was thinking about one thing, one person. The specific, entirely private thought of a man who had just survived his worst year, who the person was that he wished was there. Not to celebrate the launch, to have been there through everything before it. The months when the outcome was uncertain, the nights when the weight of it was almost too much, the ordinary mornings when there was no good news, the silence when what he was carrying had no words. He was thinking about the person who would have been there for that, not the launch, the before, the person who trusted the comeback before it came. He did not have her then. He knows now what he was missing, and the knowing, that specific, clear, completely honest knowing, is why he is still looking. Let me tell you what happens when a man is truly trusted. Not praised, not admired, not surrounded by the comfortable, contingent, performance-dependent support of people who believe in him when he is winning. Truly trusted by one person in the worst year. Something changes. Not externally, internally, in the specific, physical, completely real way of something that has been held for a long time, finally being set down. The energy that was going into maintaining the performance, into being impressive enough to justify the continued presence of the people around him, is suddenly free. Not because the work stops, but because the work is no longer powered by anxiety. It is powered by something different, by the specific, sustaining, completely real fuel of a person who knows, in the body, not just the mind, that someone is there. Not because he is winning, because they chose him. And the choosing was not conditional. And that knowing changes what he builds. Not the engineering, the intention, the why beneath the work. The building that comes from needing to earn the right to be trusted is fueled by scarcity, by the constant, low-level, never quite resolved fear that if the results stop, the trust will disappear. The building that comes from being trusted already, from the specific, complete, unconditional trust of one person who is there in the worst year, is fueled by abundance, by the extraordinary, overflowing feeling of a person who has nothing left to prove, who builds not to earn something, but because the building matters, and because the person who trusts him is part of the reason it matters. She is not beside the mission, she is in it, part of the why, part of the fuel, part of what makes the fourth rocket reach orbit, even if she was not in the room, even if she was only in his mind, in the specific, private, completely real thought of a person who knows they are trusted and builds from that knowing. I need to ask you something, not about him, about you. You have had a worst year, or you are in one, or one is coming. Because worst years come for everyone, without exception, without regard for how hard you have worked, or how carefully you have planned, or how impressive you have been. They come. And when they came, or when they come, who was there? Not who said the right things in public. Who was there in the private moments, in the 3 in the morning, in the ordinary Tuesday when there was no good news, in the silence that was heavy with uncertainty? Who stayed present when presence cost them something? Who told you the truth when the truth was hard? Who trusted the comeback before it came? Because those people, the ones who passed the 3 tests of the worst year, are the people who actually love you, not the ones who love the winning version, the ones who love you. And the inverse question is equally important. Are you that person for someone else? Are you the one who stays? Who tells the truth? Who trusts the comeback before it comes? Or do you become unavailable when the difficulty is too present, when the association costs you something, when the impressive evidence of their worth is temporarily unavailable? Because here is the truth. The kind of trust Elon Musk is looking for, the kind that would hold in his worst year, is the same kind you are looking for, and the same kind you need to become capable of giving. Real trust is not passive, it is a practice. A daily, renewed, completely real practice of staying, of telling the truth, of believing in the person through the chapter, not just the moment when the rocket reaches orbit, through everything before it. That practice is the beginning of everything real. She would have been there before the launch. This is what distinguishes her from everyone else. Not that she would celebrate when the rocket reached orbit. Everyone would celebrate then. That she would be there in September before the October launch, when the 3rd rocket had just failed, when the money was almost gone, when the press had moved into indifference, when the team was exhausted, when the outcome was genuinely in question. She would be there then. Not dramatically, not with speeches about belief and resilience. Quietly, in the ordinary way, making coffee in the morning, like it was an ordinary morning. Because she has decided, and the deciding does not have conditions. She would sit beside him in the silence, not requiring him to translate the weight of what he was carrying, not asking him to perform optimism he did not currently have, not needing him to be the impressive version, sitting, present, reading the silence, trusting the person inside it, not because the evidence demanded it, because she had watched him. In the ordinary moments, in the unremarkable Tuesdays, in the unguarded silences where the person shows rather than the performance. And she had arrived at her conclusion, slowly, without fanfare. I trust him. Not if, not when, now, in the uncertainty, in the worst year, in the specific, complete, unconditional way of a person who trusts not the results, but the person. She would have been there before the launch, and he knows it, in the specific way of a person who can feel the absence of something they have never fully had. He knows the shape of that trust, the texture of it, the particular, irreplaceable warmth of being trusted not for what you produce, but for who you are. He knows it, because he has felt it in pieces, in moments, in the brief, extraordinary, completely addictive experience of being partially trusted. And the brief, incomplete, nonetheless completely real experience of being believed in was enough to know that the full version existed somewhere in her, whoever she is, wherever she is, becoming herself for exactly this. I want to say something that will stay with you. Trust is the highest form of love. Not the romantic kind, not the daily presence kind, not the loyalty or the honesty or any of the other qualities that real love requires. Trust, the specific, costly, completely real act of believing in someone, in their worth, in their capacity, in their comeback, before the evidence supports it, before the results confirm it, before the world agrees. That trust is the highest form of love, because it costs the most. It requires the specific, vulnerable, completely exposed position of a person who has made a judgment, based not on current evidence but on accumulated knowing, and stood in it, without the protection of waiting to see, without the safety of contingency. I believe in you. Now. Not if, not when, now. That is what love looks like at its most complete. Not the sunrise on the honeymoon, not the first kiss, not any of the moments the world photographs and celebrates. The September before the October, when the third rocket has failed, when the money is almost gone, when the press is writing the obituary, when you look at the person you love and say, without conditions, without qualifications, without the protection of waiting to see if you are right, I trust you. That moment, that specific, private, completely extraordinary moment, is the fullest expression of love available to any human being. And it is what Elon Musk has been looking for. Through every marriage, through every reaching, through every year of building, not just the professional building, the personal one. Building toward the person who will look at the worst year and stay and trust without conditions. Wherever you are in your story right now, whether you are in the launch or in the September before it, whether everything is working or whether the worst year is the current year, I want to say something to you. You deserve to be trusted, not for your results, for who you are. The specific, actual, completely real person that exists when the performance is not running, when the impressive evidence of your worth is temporarily unavailable, when you are sitting in the silence of your own September, with the weight of uncertainty and no good news to offer. You deserve to be trusted then. And the work, the only work that matters in this specific dimension, is becoming the kind of person whose September self is worth trusting. Not more impressive, more real, more honest, more the person who shows up the same way in September as they do in October, who is not a different person when things are hard, who is consistent, quiet, real, doing the work, believing in the comeback, even before the evidence supports it. Because that person, the one who is the same in September as they are in October, is the person worth trusting, is the person who earns the trust of the right people. Not through performance, through consistency, through the specific, unglamorous, completely real reliability of someone who does not need the circumstances to be favorable to be fully themselves. Be that person, and the right person, the one who can trust you in your worst year, will find you, because they are looking for exactly that, someone real enough to trust. I want to tell you about the life on the other side, the life that two people build when both of them can be trusted, when both of them have passed the 3 tests for each other, in each other's worst years. It is not an easy life. Easy was never the goal. It is a real life, the kind that can hold the weight of everything without fracturing, because it is built on something that holds, trust. The specific, mutual, completely real trust of 2 people who have seen each other in September, in the before the launch, in the weight of uncertainty, in the ordinary Tuesday when there was no good news, and stayed, and told the truth, and believed in the comeback before it came. That life holds. Not because nothing difficult happens, because both people know, in the body, not just the mind, that the other person is there. Not if, not when. Now. In the September, in the worst year, in the specific, ordinary, unremarkable moment that nobody photographs. And it is in that knowing, that specific, complete, unconditional knowing, that everything else becomes possible. The rockets, the companies, the extraordinary, never quite satisfied, always pointing toward more building. All of it is better, more grounded, more directed, more powered by the right fuel. Because behind it, not in front of it, not managing it, not following it, behind it is the trust of one person, who was there in September and is here now, and will be here still, in the next September, when it comes, as it always does. That trust changes everything. Everyone loves a winner. That is easy, that costs nothing. But Elon Musk is not looking for someone who loves his winning. He is looking for something rarer, someone who trusts him in the losing, who stays in September, who tells the truth when the truth is hard, who believes in the comeback before it comes. The woman who would be there, not at the launch, in the months before it, when the outcome was uncertain, when the money was almost gone, when the press had moved into indifference, when the ordinary Tuesday had nothing impressive to offer, just him, the actual him, the September version. And she would be there. Not because he was winning, because she had decided. And the deciding did not have conditions. That woman, that trust, that specific, rare, completely extraordinary love that shows itself most clearly in the worst year is what he has been building toward. Through every launch, through every loss, through every reaching for something real. And it is what you deserve too. Not when you are winning. Always. In September. In the worst year. In the ordinary Tuesday with no good news. You deserve to be trusted then. And the beginning of finding that is becoming someone whose September self is worth trusting. Be that, and the rest will follow. If this story reached something in you, if it named the trust you have been looking for, or the trust you need to become capable of giving, then let it matter. Let it change one thing, even the decision to show up for one person's September, the way you want someone to show up for yours. And if you want to be here every week, for more stories that find the truth inside the extraordinary life, that bring you back to what actually lasts, subscribe and stay with us. Every week, we will be here. Not only in the October, in the September too, the way the right things always are. We will see you there.